Hey, party people. Oh, I stole that. I shouldn't have said that. This is Ready, Set, Data, where I steal lines from other shows that I really appreciate. So I hope they take it as flattery. So now that I did all that, Ready, Set, Data, I'm Anthony Fortner. I'm a data engineer, and I'm here with the database extraordinaire, Lee Markham. How you doing, Lee?
Hello. I'm doing well. Today's been good. I'm gonna take these off. Today's been pretty good.
Awesome.
It's a good day.
I'm experimenting with a virtual screen, obviously, and I don't know if I love it.
You're kind of like looks like you're half in the wall, kind of like there's a special kind of cloaking engine that I'm thinking of in an episode of Star Trek with Captain Jellicoe.
Oh yeah, and then people are fused into the asteroid.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Moment of silence for those poor souls.
Yes. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that made me think of that. So
I think I'm going to experiment with that later. It's being compared to a tragic accident that cost the loss of many lives in a fake universe that's in the hundreds of years in the future.
Well, I thought it was entertaining. It's all right, but whatever you want to do, it's all good. It just made me think of that. You could put yourself in the living room. I don't know. Whatever.
All right, come with me, audience. Come with me. We're gonna go into my living room and have a seat. We're gonna have a brief little chat here. Totally unprofessional now. It's nice. It's so nice. So yeah, Ready, Set, Data, and today we're talking about public speaking, basically, and like how that intersects with your career, right? Yep. Terrifying subject. Can't wait. Just in time for Halloween.
Yeah, just in time. So I mean, everybody says that they're more afraid of public speaking than death. I'm not quite sure I understand that, but maybe that's because that's not true for me. So we're going to be looking at the career development category on leemarkham.com, kind of as source material for tonight's conversation, and kicking it off from there to see where this is going to head off to. So, okay, that's what I was trying to get up there. So there's a career development section or category on my blog at leemarkham.com, and that's kind of the source material for tonight's discussion. Yeah, I also, while not completely fearful of presenting or public speaking, have been on kind of a slow journey toward building up presentation skills. Doing things like this is one of the things that I'm doing to build presentation skills. But before we got to this point, you and I were on a journey of managing or leading a SQL Server meetup group. And one fateful night, we had our second cancellation in a row on short notice.
It was unfortunately just a thing that we have to deal with. It's like it's occupational hazard.
Yeah. So I had like about a week to get ready. The cancellation came in about a week before we were going to do the meetup. And like I said, we'd had 2 cancellations. That would be the second cancellation in a row, second month that we didn't meet. And I really hated that. I wanted to keep the momentum going. And I was like, what can I talk on? There's got to be something I can talk about. And I think I settled on SQL Server features that make life easier. And built that presentation in just like a weekend. I put about 15 hours into it, including practice time, and gave that presentation about July of 2021, I think. And then there later was an invitation to this conference called New Stars of Data. So if you go to newstarsofdata.com, you can see a whole bunch of people that have spoken. They have the saved presentations from those individuals there at New Stars of Data. There's also a presenter's library there now that gives people help about how do you build a presentation? What should it look like? What kinds of things should you think about as you're building a PowerPoint and going to share your knowledge with people. And there's a number of other things in the presentation library. It's a really great resource. I applied for New Stars of Data and was accepted, and I presented that SQL Server features that make life better presentation there at New Stars of Data about this time a year ago, I think. And it was really a good thing. And it went pretty well. I had, good feedback about that. But recently, I read another article about this kind of topic, and in the post or article was making the point that we present all the time. We just don't think of it as presenting.
Oh.
So when you were in a meeting today and someone said, hey, I don't quite understand why I'm getting this error message, and you said, oh, Susie Q, it's because X, Y, and Z, you are practicing public speaking because you're in a meeting with Susie Q and other people while she's asking this question, and you're explaining the information and knowledge that you have, not only for the benefit of the person who's asked, but everyone else gets to hear that information as well.
It's technically it's public, but it doesn't have that same feel as
Right.
like, hey, I have a whole user group of professionals, or I have strangers on the interwebs.
Right. That certainly is different, but I think the point that the poster was trying to get across, or that the blog post or article was trying to get across, is we, while maybe not as much as at stake like you were talking about, we do present, we do public speaking in smaller circles. And if we can get comfortable with that and the idea that that is public speaking, then it maybe is a little easier to branch out into other things.
Yeah, it kind of brings up the idea that maybe it's like anything else we're training ourselves up to do. If we're working out muscles, you slowly increase that weight, you slowly get that better. Or if we're working on endurance, you run a little farther, you swim a little farther. Maybe with public speaking, especially for those of us who are a little more introverted, there is a idea, like you said, you're already public speaking in front of 3 people. What about 4? What about 7? What about 30? And like you get comfortable with a larger and larger group, and more of them being strangers, and eventually you build up to tolerance. Next thing you know, you're at a conference in front of who knows how many people that you've never met before, and it's that terrifying.
Yeah, that certainly can be that gradual buildup to influence to larger and larger audiences as you share what you know. And I think there's a perception that people need to be experts before they start presenting, and I think that's absolutely
that is
not
there.
true.
That exists.
Yeah,
I'm guilty of thinking that. I'm saying I'm talking against it right now, but I still don't feel like I'll out myself. I don't feel like I can get up on stage and be like, this is how you do a thing, because it's like if I can think of non-zero amount of people who can do it better, I feel like I shouldn't be talking about it. That's inappropriate, but I'm human.
Yeah, it is a natural human reaction to think, well, why should I be presenting? There's so many other people who can do it better, who have done it better. Why would someone listen to me? Blah, blah, blah. But I think in many cases, people who would attend a presentation from someone want that person to succeed. They want it to go well, and they show up hoping, anticipating that they're going to learn something. So I think if a presenter or a person who's pondering doing a presentation would think of it that way, that it gives them a bit of confidence. Hey, people are coming to see me. They want to hear from me. They are hoping that I'm going to give them something that's useful. I think we have useful things to offer way earlier than we realize.
I also want to offer up that sometimes you cross a threshold and you're offering more knowledge than you realize you are. Like you have more to offer than you think. And that
Right.
threshold, you get farther and farther across the threshold without realizing it. Because I've definitely been at a conference and heard a speaker talk, and that speaker has pointed out the person that taught him what he's talking about is in the audience, and that person learned something, And I'm not saying the student has surpassed the teacher, but you think you're at level 3,
Mhm.
but you have things to offer even people who are level 5, even if it's just a perspective, right?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. There was a person who posted on Twitter yesterday or 2 days ago about their first YouTube video that they made. So they give us the link, and some folks had clicked on it. And I'm watching it. This guy's really high energy. He's up in your face. He's loud and exciting and doing all this interesting stuff. He's very much not like me. But it was entertaining. And I noticed something early in the video. He said, I have 3 years of experience in software engineering, and we're going to cover the basics. We're going to cover the basics, and we're going to cover more basics. And then he said, once we're done with that, we're going to go on and do some more advanced things. And he jumps into LeetCode, which is pretty interesting. I did not solve the FizzBuzz thing,
Oh,
but
yeah.
I'm on my way to solving it, by the way.
I planted a seed. Good.
You did. So, but I thought it was interesting. He has 3 years of experience, and he thinks that's enough to do YouTube. And I applauded him on Twitter. I said, fantastic. That's awesome. You don't need to have 10 years of experience or feel like you're some sort of expert with a book out to make a contribution and to help people.
I really did not know that FizzBuzz was considered LeetCode. I always thought that was like a trick, not trick, but like a just interview question that people hear about. But I guess maybe is that what LeetCode really is? Is it just like interview questions? They give it a cool sounding name so you can be like,
I think so.
Captain Hacker / Okay.
Yeah, I think so. It's probably more than that. It's probably an oversimplification. But when I Googled FizzBuzz problem last week, LeetCode was the first thing that came up. So it certainly is a part of LeetCode. Okay. If I have time, I'm going to solve it and show it next week. How I solved it.
Do it. Awesome.
Without stealing.
I'll show up next week then.
Yeah, you should do that. We haven't really talked about yet, so we've talked about presenting, but how does that connect with your career? What does that have to do with your day job? What do you think before I dive in? Like, what do you feel like could be some places where there would be intersection between presenting and your day job?
I think low-hanging fruit would be a way that presenting would help your day job is it'll build up confidence. Yes, you need a certain amount of confidence to do it in the first place. I acknowledge that. But once you reach a threshold where you can be a little scared and present, you will build up your own confidence. And a healthy amount of confidence, I think, helps your career when you're able to talk succinctly to a certain point and get that point across to anybody, quote unquote, then it'll be easier for you to talk to and get your point across to your coworkers and peers.
Yeah. So talk about confidence. You mentioned, I don't know, you didn't use these words, building communication skills.
Oh, I didn't use those words, but yeah, that's exactly what.
But that's what you were talking about. I can also think about, organizing. This is part of building communication skills, I guess, but organizing thoughts into, coherent, presentable sections.
That was so meta. I wish you did that on purpose.
It was. I realized what was happening.
What I'm trying to say is,
there's
a skill where you like search for words and you put them together, and then you present them. And it's important when you talk to people or present publicly while speaking.
Thank you for
And
mocking
scene.
me. And,
I wasn't trying to mock you. I was trying to make some quality content.
yeah.
You've inspired me is what I'm really trying to say.
Yes, there you go. No, I mean, I think it forces you to think about how to convey an idea to someone. Obviously, there's the communication skills. I have to be able to put words together, but you have to first, hopefully, be able to plan out the words and look at them and say, does this even make sense? Am I explaining this correctly? Do I have all the pieces? That sort of thing. You also have to think about, preparation. Preparation for speaking. Like, what do I need to do to be prepared beyond just building my PowerPoint? Like, what things do I need to think about? So there are a number of things. I think also there's an intersection there where you give a presentation. People, as we've said, they want you to succeed. People compliment you at the end of the presentation, and you feel good about what you've done. Your boss, if we're talking about an internal presentation, maybe your boss is there, maybe your boss's boss is there, maybe it's recorded, and it goes up on some kind of internal website where people can access it, and so other people that maybe weren't necessarily the intended audience also get to see it, and it floats up the chain of your company, and people say better, they say good things about you as it floats up. You've impressed, to a certain level, you've impressed all the people above you, or at least some of them. They remember your name, and that can be helpful when you want a promotion. They remember the presentation that you did 6 months ago that was really so cool, and everybody just loved it and said they learned a lot. So I think these are areas in which presenting can really help you with
because
your work.
putting on. Oh, sorry. Yeah, when it comes to putting on a presentation, we already mentioned you don't have to be the top of your industry, but there is just, you're 3 years in, you're 2 years in, you're 1 year in, but you have something that interests people and you could talk about it, and a group of people will learn from it. It'll help your career because it helps the people above you, the people around you, know that you are a subject matter expert on this particular item. You don't have to be the expert, but you do know enough about this to talk. And if you're doing a presentation, people showing up and people are liking it, it reinforces that. To go back to what you said about internally, same thing. You learn something new. That's a plus if your employer lets you do that. And then you bring that information to your coworkers, showing that off, saying, hey, this is a thing I learned, not only shows that you can do the thing, but that the thing is possible. That now people can see, that's a tool that we want in our tool belt, or don't. But I think either way, it's adding to the company. This is why it's good for the company. It's adding to your team, and it does give you more credence, more credentials, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. The presenting part forces you to learn the topic better than even you knew before you were going to talk about it. So, because you don't want to embarrass yourself, you don't want to say things that are wrong. You want to succeed, obviously, just like everybody else who's there wants you to succeed. So you're going to put effort and focus and time into it, and you come out learning or knowing more about the subject than when you started. And that translates to people liking your presentation and remembering your name recognition for the promotion or whatever. It leaves um, a good sense about you as a person and as an employee on the folks that are making those decisions about promotions.
Absolutely.
Public presenting, kind of like we're doing now, or at a conference like, I don't know, say Redgate Pass Summit.
Yeah, let's say that one.
Also, can be a career changer because broader and broader audiences get to see what you know, and they get to experience help from another person. In that context, almost always it's going to be, a stranger. Some of those folks you might know, but maybe you haven't met them in person yet. You know them over social media, but you present at a big conference. Maybe you go in person, you get to meet some of those folks. Again, they get a good impression of you because you've put a lot of effort into your presentation. And the next time they need a subject matter expert, they might think of you and reach out to you over social media with their problem to say, hey, can you help me with this? I kind of remember your presentation was about this subject. And that could be, a pretty big deal. It could lead to an opportunity that you can't say no to. Maybe a job opens up at one of those places for at a company that had someone there that listened to you. That's what I'm trying to say. And they remember you like, oh, I think this guy could, or this woman, this person might be great for this role. I remember their presentation on PowerShell or whatever it is, Python, and they might be a good fit for this. And they reach out to you. So I think that is another way. That is another way in which presenting on a larger scale could help your career.
Yeah, it's not just inside the company, right? If some of us are pretty attached to companies, some of us jump around. It's a common thing in IT. There's a lot of people who move every 2 years, every 3 years, and then they brag about it on LinkedIn, right? So you've all seen it. But the fact that you're putting stuff out there, what? Laugh at me. Actually, laugh at me. Do it. They're moving from every 2 years, every 3 years, to get a promotion, get a raise, or get the job that they're really shooting for in the end. By being out there, being seen, that really helps, right?
Right.
Employers, may Google your name, and if you say you've spoken at this place, then they go look and see that you have already. You're getting bonus points. They see you that you do it once or twice, and they watch the video and hear you talk authoritatively on a subject. And again, even if it's the video you made after you've been doing a thing for a year, if you're spot on and you're giving out good content, they're like, okay, so this person isn't dialing it in, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to look at a blog post I wrote called 6 Things to Consider When Presenting. We'll kind of switch to you've decided that you're going to present. Now what? So one of the bullet point I had there is first thing is be sure you show up early for your presentation. You don't know, you need to leave yourself room for a technical failure of some kind. So your laptop won't start. The internet connection isn't good. The audio-visual person isn't there yet. Whatever. Just leave yourself a little bit of time so that you have some flexibility. The other thing is use stories whenever possible. People love stories. Stories stick with people more than just what I'm kind of doing right now, bullet points. So people love stories. One of the, I incorporated a story in the very first presentation that I did about a person who didn't want or didn't think it was really necessary for us, for me to build and use temporal tables to capture changes. They were like, "Oh, well, this information we manage it anyway. It's not really a big deal." And I told the story about that in the presentation about features that make your life better, because I was talking to that person while another person approached. They had data up on the screen in Access, and they're changing it while they're looking up over here to this other person. And they look back at the screen, and the other person is like, "That's not right there." And I was like, "Yeah, this is why I want a way to capture changes." So people remember those stories, and they'll associate that with whatever point it is you're trying to make, with whatever technology feature you're discussing. One thing I ended up doing that I regretted was making a bunch of changes to the presentation shortly before you have to give it.
Yeah, because you practice one way and then you're like, I'll tweak it. And now your muscle memory and your plans are against each other.
Yeah, exactly. I think that happened because I got some late feedback that I wanted to incorporate, and I made changes, and I shouldn't have. I just should have held on to that feedback and waited for the next time I was going to give the presentation, and make those changes enough in advance for the next presentation to work them in and have that muscle memory that you're talking about. Speaking of which, the next thing is, practice frequently and record yourself giving the presentation. So pretty much everyone has access to something that can do that now, whether that's Zoom or Teams or
your phone.
Your phone. Yeah, yes, you could practice on your phone. You're going to throw it away. You're not going to keep it. But yeah, you can even just use your phone. Yes, I'm just going to throw it in the trash. You can delete the video is what I mean.
You know what? That makes more sense. I don't know. Thought that was a hip thing to do. I throw away my clothes after I wear them. I burn my phone. That sounds horrible for the environment. When I'm done taking a video of myself.
Yeah. But practice until you get comfortable with it. And there is, like you said, this certain sense of muscle memory. You kind of know the feel and flow of your presentation. It helps you with finding your words, which I'm obviously struggling with at the moment, that sort of thing. So,
hey, we keep it real on this show. We will struggle with words. We will forget how to put them together. We will pick on each other when we can't put them together and act like we're doing it worse. All the things. What were we talking about? Yeah, we're off subject.
We mentioned this earlier, but be sure your information is accurate. Will people forgive you for technical mistakes? Sure, because we all make them. But as much as you can, research your topic. Be sure that what you're sharing is true, so that it will help your audience as much as they can be helped. The last thing is super practical and kind of funny, and I anticipate we're going to go off the rails here, but
the people that show up expect nothing less.
I suppose. So this one is in here because of a mistake I made. So I love,
better. Let's do it.
If possible, brush your teeth before presenting. So I had, it seems like a weird thing to include in this, but I learned this when I was doing a practice session for New Stars of Data, actually. Luckily, it wasn't, during the actual presentation, but I had eaten, an hour or two before, and then I sat down at this desk to do a practice run. And part of the way through, a piece of food dislodges, and I'm trying to hide that during the recording I'm doing. So I'm like, okay, I'm so glad this is just a recording. I stumbled through it, but I learned a valuable lesson. So there you go.
Always brush your teeth before. I mean, yeah.
It's a practical tip to prevent one more thing from going wrong.
Yeah. Sudden urge to say, like, I'm just going to have liquids whenever I present. But that could have unintended side effects too, I guess. So.
Yeah, but then you're going to be hungry, which will also be a distraction.
Especially for me.
Yeah. So, yeah. So there you go. 6 things to think about when you're going to present.
Very good. Very awesome. And I think it's super important. Maybe not the earliest part of your career, but there gets to be a point where you should start getting more and more comfortable presenting and get more and more, so you need to start working those skills. Like I was saying earlier, it's like flexing a muscle. Hey, I can talk in front of 3 people. I'm talking in front of 5 people. Eventually get to the point where, hey, I'm just presenting in front of strangers, and then start making your content. And there's YouTube and Twitch and everything else, but definitely, as you talked about what you're doing, community user groups, talking basically directly to other professionals in your area, talking to people at conferences. Yeah, I think all that's super important for just your growth period, but also, like you said, your career, both at the company you're at and or moving on to other companies. So super important.
I think that kind of wraps up the conversation at this point. I didn't have any additional material that I kind of wanted to go over. I just really hope that people, watching it after the fact will feel a little more confident, a little more certain that they can step out and use the current presentation skills that they have and build them and grow them to help other people. So, yeah.
All right, awesome. All right, so we'll go ahead here. Those of you who've been watching lately, we'll do an ending for this particular video, but then we'll stick on after and we'll see what happens then. All right, so in that case, thank you everybody for joining us today on Ready Set Data. I'm Anthony Fortner, data engineer, and the speaker today talking about speaking in front of people like you, glorious people, is Lee Markham, database administrator. Good night, everybody.
Good night.